George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie, Wolves, is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie, Wolves,
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it, so do it.
definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it, it's cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
What is Cafe Mocha? Cafe Mocha is experts, celebrities.
What's up? This is Belle Biv DeVoe.
Yours truly, Idris Elba.
This is Fantasia.
This is In Vogue.
This is India Ari.
So much more. All from a woman's perspective.
What flavor are you, baby?
This is Cafe Mocha.
Get ready for Cafe Mocha with Emmy Award-winning talk show host Lonnie Love, hip-hop legend Yo-Yo, and I'm the producer Angelique. Not that anyone's counting, but we have just over a month till the election. And to help educate us on the issues and separate the lies from the truth, we've got White House correspondent Ebony McMorris. But first up, Lonnie Love is in them streets.
Honey, Beyonce is happening in these streets, Angelique.
Okay.
First
Always,
of all, the CMAs, the Country Music Awards, they came out and not one nomination for Beyonce. Now, the reason why everybody is so surprised by that is because if you've been living under a rock, just to remind everyone, she had an album called Cowboy Carter. That's hard to say, isn't it? Cowboy Carter. And in that album she said that it's not a country album, but it's a Beyonce album. But there were country songs on that album, specifically songs that went number one.
On what chart?
On the Billboard country chart.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Okay, like don't act like you don't remember, Angelique. You was over there jamming to So a lot of people are surprised that she didn't get one nomination. So but which actually is what she was saying. She was like, in her words, she feels like this industry tends, when it comes to Black performers, they have favoritism. They tend to be a little racist. And, how is it that Post Malone put out a country album? Post Malone is a rapper. He put out a country album. He got about 4 nominations for the CMAs and she didn't get nothing. And she went number one. It's like, really? What are we doing here? Okay.
What we're doing.
Well, there was a wonderful op-ed piece in Harper's Bazaar, and it says, let's be clear, the CMAs don't deserve Beyonce. They refuse to recognize Cowboy Carter in any categories for its upcoming awards, though the project was indisputably one of the biggest country albums, not just of the year, but of all time. And basically they went in. Harper's Bazaar let this happen. They say that the CMAs don't know how to measure impact, especially in the case of groundbreaking work like Cowboy Carter. Over the last 3 decades, Beyonce has shown us that her work isn't meant to fit into restricted, arbitrary, industry-produced boxes. After all, she's also ahead of her time. So that was one thing. But then, Beyonce released she did an article for GQ. She's on the cover of this month's GQ. And in it is because, she tends to be very demure. She tends to be very into herself and private. And this interview was very, very revealing. She made a quote, and I want to get the quote correct because I was like, wow, Beyonce. She basically says that her work, she's private and she doesn't use her family life to produce her work. And so a lot of people are like, wow. So it was a very eye-opening article that expressed, her inner feelings. And she had some fly pictures with different, poses and outfits and stuff. And then she has this whiskey that she's trying to sell too. So,
Can we go back to the CMAs a little bit? Because I usually check it out, and I know they've been trying hard to I don't want to say integrate, but to add Black people in. I'm sure people saw the clips of Mary J. Blige some years ago, a couple of years ago. Her got on stage with one of the big country singers and played the hell out of her guitar. You know, they have various actors giving awards away, Black actors. And so it's weird to me as they are trying to be more inclusive that they wouldn't nominate Beyonce, because what would be more inclusive than that?
Yeah. Which tells you there's something going on in the industry with her. Well, I mean, it's something. She's been unapologetically for the culture. And so when she did Cowboy Carter, like she says, this is not a country album because when you listen to it, there are aspects of it that are not country. But to be able to but there were like half of the songs were country in that genre. And if you go to your podcast, your Apple, your Spotify, your Apple Music, you see it falls under country. So it should qualify as country, which means that it should have been nominated. Now, also, to her credit, she introduced us to different Black country artists like Shabuzi, who's got Tipsy. That song that he got nominated for 2 CMAs. And what I liked about him is that he thanked the CMAs and he says, wow, I never thought I would be nominated. And then he put out another tweet and he says, but also understand, I want to thank Beyonce because without her giving me this platform and opening it up, you guys would have never listened to my music. So Beyonce, I'm sure, realizes all of this. She understands it. It's just that you just hate to see the girl works really, really hard. The woman works hard. And for people to not be recognized, yeah, she might say, yeah, this was going to happen, but it does hurt. And again, I want to remind people that awards are currency at times. She doesn't need it, but it's currency at times because what it does is that it opens up and it also helps other artists that are trying to get into different genres. Why is it that Black folks, we allow everybody to come into R&B? You got Justin Timberlake, you got Adele, you got all these people. They'll come in. We don't sit there and gatekeep and go, well, because you white and you not of the culture, you can't be R&B. Well, the same thing should happen with country. And it's not about you picking who you want to pick. It's about the fact that this is proof that there is something or some type of conspiracy against Beyonce. Now, what I want to see, this is just the CMAs. I want to see what happens for the Grammys in the country genre. That will really be the answer to, that will really speak volumes. So
I agree.
This month's GQ, check her out. She's on the cover. You can't miss it. And, it's one quote, and I'm going to close it out with this. It's not about being perfect. This is from Beyonce, GQ. It's about being revolutionary. In a rare interview, the superstar opens up to GQ about her extraordinary legacy, her new whiskey brand, motherhood, and much more. That's Cafe Mocha, and we are about supporting all the sisters, especially ones that's selling whiskey. And you know why, Angela.
That's Lonnie Love in these streets. Ebony McMorris next on Cafe Mocha.
Standing in solidarity from a woman's perspective. It's Cafe Mocha.
Cafe Mocha with Lonnie Love, Yo-Yo, and Angelique on the line. She is White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks. Welcome back to Cafe Mocha, Ebony McMorris. How are you?
I am doing good. I have a lot of expectation. How are you all doing?
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Let's get into it right now because this is the election season, Ebony. Now, let's get right into it, Ebony. This is the election, season. What are you feeling? What is your feels? Tell me, because you got the inside scoop as the White House correspondent. What right now is the feeling and the energy going on?
You said it right. This is the election season, but I feel like we are in a new season. a new season of politics where we have Vice President Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. And many have compared it to when we saw President Obama. But I think this wave is different. This isn't about race and the first time seeing someone Black, but this for many is about having ownership of their bodies. This time is also, I believe, honestly, putting the courts at the front of the conversation more than we've ever seen before. I feel like the divisiveness in this country had gone to a whole new level that we hadn't really been checking for, but it was already there. And I think people are growing tired and weary. So you're seeing a shakeup that we haven't seen before, even in the Republican Party. It is interesting to sit back and watch and to be in the room in the White House as these conversations are going on, but then to also be in communities of color where I'm hearing Black folks say, break this down for me. And I hear their real stories of how this is affecting kitchen table issues.
Definitely. I mean, right now, a lot is happening, but President Biden has less than 5 months left in office. And, you know, during the DNC speech, he says, I've got work to do. What are some of the things that he can make happen in these 5 months?
Thanks for asking, because, you know, as I'm in the briefing room, I'm having organizations, I'm having people reach out to me and say, ask for this, ask about that. So we're seeing people come to the front to say, hey, is he going to appoint a reparations task force? I spoke with Black farmers who said, you know, under this administration, Black farmers got the biggest debt relief that they've ever had. It was like $2.something billion. But they said that wasn't that was for aid. That was aid. But they're saying, is he going to also give debt relief? And that's something that he can do with an executive order. In addition to that, are we going to see anything else happen when it comes to student loans by executive order? We do know every time, even though there's been record forgiveness that has really helped the Black community, every single time there's been lawsuits that come immediately after. I think there are over 20 lawsuits right now. I'm getting questions from organizations about, well, what is he going to do about on pardons? So there are some of the things. I spoke with someone that was connected to the administration, and they said you're going to see a rollout of some executive orders, but we cannot be specific. One question that I did ask when we had representatives come to the White House, one to actually Senator Tammy Duckworth, I said, when it comes to voting rights, we're seeing a huge uptick in suppression efforts, right? So is the president going to pass any type of executive order to protect those when it comes to voting rights? And she said, very quickly, she said, we're working on it, but I cannot say anything. I was like, okay, maybe there's something coming.
Wow.
This is the time. I mean, I shouldn't say this is the time. 6 months
No,
ago
you're right.
was the time to be working on voter suppression issues. We saw months ago that states, not months ago, actually after the 2020 election, we saw Georgia and all these other states making all kinds of changes in their laws to make sure people can't vote or are dissuaded from voting. So, Ebony, let me ask you this. When it comes to tricks that people are seeing out there, tricks to get us not to vote, voter suppression, what are the biggest things that are being done?
So it's funny. People may remember, because he said so much, Trump said, I'm not worried about votes. I'm not counting votes anymore. You know why? Because there are efforts to not certify the election. So, nope, maybe you're not looking for some new votes. But guess what? We look at Texas, you got 2 million people purged off voting rolls. We can go from Texas. We can go to Georgia, where they're making it easier for your neighbor to kick you off the rolls. We can go to Wyoming, that's seen, I believe, a 25% decrease in voters on the rolls. And guess what? Those areas that are having it are areas that have some of the most restrictive laws since the U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act a decade ago. And they're areas that had a history of racial voting discrimination. So basically, they aim in black. I'm just going to be honest.
Not
When
in
you look at the
Wyoming.
Brennan,
Ain't no black people in Wyoming. Come on.
hey, I said that too. I said that too, sis. Maybe there's some of you just don't know. But look, they're just they are. It is a new. We've seen this before, but they're doubling down. So when he said, "I'm not worried about getting more voters," I'm going now. We can see they're going after election subversion tactics, and so. Besides passing, I believe almost 300 restrictive bills have been considered in 40 states, making it harder. So what we saw recently was the Department of Justice respond to this. Kristen Clark has put out a statement on this. And so they're trying to attack these and let people know the law will come down against you if we see voter intimidation at the polls, because we've seen that a lot. They said also that there's going to be a 90-day quiet period before the elections. And that means that states are going to have to complete any procedure when it comes to removing names ineligible voters off the list. But here's the thing. If my name got purged because I just moved to another location, right, and I'm getting stuff that's going to the wrong place, 3 months, it's not enough time sometimes when you're in that process to get everything together. And so who knows if they're even sending it? I mean, it's been a lot. Some states have been trying to ban mail-in ballots, because we saw the success of mail-in ballots, especially during COVID when we all had to kind of sit down. And they've been pushing against that. So I'm curious to see what is going to happen when it comes to certifying the election. And Georgia was one of the first places to come out, and their Board of Elections pushed laws that says they can do this type of investigation and not certify. We so cool.
Wow. It's Cafe Mocha, Angelique, Yo-Yo, Lonnie Love on the line, award-winning journalist and White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks, Ebony McMorris. Ebony, let's talk about the fact that VP Harris has captured the support of GOP members like Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, various elected GOP leaders. What do you make of that?
Look, I'll double down on you with that one, Lonnie, because we even had over 200 Republicans that previously either worked for President George W. Bush, the late John McCain, Romney, endorse Harris for president in an open letter a few weeks ago. Where even at the DNC, we saw Republicans come out and endorse her. But here's my warning with that, because I know people were applauding and they're happy, but when I look at that, I say it's not that you're endorsing Harris. You are coming against Trump because you feel like he threatens your party. But my question is, when we look at the voting records of Republicans, they have been in step with each other when it comes to issues of George Floyd Policing Act, when it comes to the Voting Rights Act. What happened with that? What are you going to do when it comes to issues that affect Black America? Are you going to go a different direction, or are you going to follow in line? When we have the question of women's reproductive health freedom, how are you going to vote then? Because, yes, thank you very much. I'm sure they're taking that. Great. Now, what are you going to do when it comes to policy for this community? So I can't give you a cookie for that. Because at the end of the day, are you going to vote the same way? What's going to happen when it comes to the child tax credit that we saw in this administration help bring child poverty up 50%? What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do with student loans? I go down the list of things. What are you going to do when it comes to home appraisals, right? And what Black folk have had to go through when it comes to their appraisals being so low? How are you going to vote for that? Are you going to cut social programs? We have 13 Republican governors that would not instill social programs that would help kids eat. Eat. That live in food. I'm in Washington, D.C. There is a food desert around the corner from me. And if I go down less than another mile, I'm near the Capitol. How is that? I can see the seat of power, but I cannot eat in my own backyard.
Wow.
How will
And
you vote?
the threat of Project 2025 is real. Trump has tried to back away from it, but do you see it already being implemented?
Absolutely. We can start when it comes to abortion rights. And I start there so much because it is the issue they have tried to backtrack on, because guess what? They got their own people caught up. You got white women who in large voted for Donald Trump saying, whoa. I'm trying to have IVF. I'm trying to have a baby. I have miscarriages. What you're doing is catching me up. So they tried to backtrack. And you got J.D. Vance going 10 toes down in ignorance when it comes to talking about a woman's bodies. All that is in Project 2025. Student loans, taking the Department of Justice and then weaponizing it. That we've seen them try to do that illegally. Project 2025 will make it legal. When we see what's going to happen if you do not, if you do not basically have allegiance to this government and you are a government worker, they say, "Oh, we can take you up out of here. We don't have to." We've seen remnants of Project 2025. Affirmative action. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's Project 2025. You can't back away from what you are already putting. What you are already putting down into law. You can't back away from that. I need people to realize when people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter, it cannot happen," I need you to see, when you look at the Supreme Court, all the decisions that they've recently handed down, even the Chevron decision, that is Project 2025.
Yep. And he stacked the court.
Talk about that. And if he gets 3 more justices that are 50, let's say they come in at 50 years old, and you got a 5-year-old at home. I don't know what it is, but justices always live a long time. Let's say they go from 50 to 80 years old. That means that your child that could be in your room right now for 30 years of her life, there are decisions that are already made. And those decisions are things like, you will not have reproductive rights freedom. That's how deep. I call this a legacy vote. And I know every year we say it's so important. For me, it's a legacy vote, because your vote this time, truly, when it comes to the courts, you are truly voting for the next generation.
It's Cafe Mocha on the line with Ebony McMorris, White House correspondent for AURN, American Urban Radio Networks. Can we talk about voter turnout? Because obviously the race is pretty tight. And it will come down to who shows up and who doesn't. And one of the questions I want to ask is, will the young people, will the Gen Z and the young millennials, are they coming to the polls? Have they gotten excited by Kamala?
You know, I'm glad you asked that. Actually, the campaign had put out information today on how they are specifically targeting college campuses. So what we have seen a huge uptick, over like 120% in many voting groups, especially with women and with young people, in registering to vote and also committing to vote. The question is, will you actually turn out? You know, I went to church on Sunday and I prayed for the weather gods. I was like, Lord, please, let's have some good weather so people can come out to vote. I really think that you're going to see a lot more younger people show out and come out to the polls. But another group also are the undecideds that's saying, I'm not feeling Trump, but I'm also trying to find out more about Vice President Harris. And a recent Ipsos poll showed that group represents about 28%. I really think that, I'm not sure, but I'm really thinking we're going to see higher numbers of young people energized in this election than what we have seen before. Look, her camp has definitely the war chest, has the money for it. She has raised more money than any other presidential campaign. This is someone who people didn't even think was going to show up on a radar for a poll.
Mm-hmm.
And now has turned the entire base around, the conversation around, and where people thought it was sad when Joe Biden had to pass the torch. I promise you, being in the White House, that man feel like he got a little bit more energy in his chest. I don't know what happened, but the world became energized. And so if she can continue to make the case for who she is and people do their research and become engaged, I think you are going to see higher numbers in a lot of different categories, and especially young people going to the polls than what we've seen. And I hope that then turns into energy that we see young people wanting to take office.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hope this energy turns into. The vote is just the floor. But then how do you become more civically engaged in your school boards? How do you go against Moms for Liberty, banning books all over the place? I want to see more people saying, you know what, I want to go into education. I want to see more Black men going to that field. I hope this just begins to change how we look at civic engagement.
We're talking to Ebony McMorris, White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks. Go to vote.org. Everything you need is right there on the homepage. This is Cafe Mocha.
We're at Cafe Mocha Radio. Socially savvy on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Serving up more Cafe Mocha on the way.
Art tells a story, your story, and inspires others in your community to do the same. AARP is celebrating the undeniable impact and contributions of Black art and artists everywhere. We're thrilled to celebrate these creators over 50. Through their work and persistence, they make society a better place by bringing us all closer together. Learn more at aarp.org/Black-community.
Standing in solidarity from a woman's perspective. It's Cafe Mocha.
It's Cafe Mocha. White House correspondent Ebony McMorris is our guest. We're talking about the upcoming election.
You know, Ebony, we always introduce our White House correspondents, but just briefly, can you give us a description of what you actually do as a White House correspondent?
Absolutely. I'll describe it in the words of Allison Dunnigan. She was the first African-American Black woman to have White House presidential credentials. And she one of the only ones in the room, right, with her Black skin. And she said, even though I cover the same stories that everybody else does, one thing that I also do is I go in fighting oppression. When I talk about the role that I have in the White House, I'm in the White House briefing room. I'm reaching out to administrative officials, trying to clearly understand what this policy means. What I feel like I carry on my back is the oppression that we have fought against. And so the challenges that I have is to break through the noise, either to press harder for you to see us. I don't care who it is in the White House, or it is to give enlightenment to our communities through my news reports. And I don't just stop there. I'm in board meetings. I'm in the community. I'm literally sometimes on the weekend with friends, with organizations, passing out food. So for me, it's all connected because I'm born and raised in D.C. at a time in the 80s, at the height of the crack epidemic. And my neighborhood was called Little Beirut because of the drugs and the crime. Mm. So when I walk in that room, with my community on my back because I was one of the ones who they didn't think that would make it. But I had a Black mother who said, no, not this one.
Mm. And the last question for Ebony McMorris, our White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks. We got to do, in your opinion, what is it about this immigration that our folks should be paying attention to, in your opinion?
Thank you for asking that. I do not feel like the conversation on immigration has expanded. We don't talk about what's happening with Haitians. We don't talk about what happens with melanated, dark-skinned immigrants in this country. We just don't. We don't center that story, because if we had, we would have been talking about when they had the CPB-1 app that was supposed to be helping people who were trying to apply, that the app in the beginning didn't even recognize dark skin. Like, we've got to do a better job in that. That's why it's important for us, for I would say melanated people, to have this conversation. We need to see what it looks like in our communities. Honestly, when I look at DC is really a melting pot for so many different in so many different groups of people. And I think we need to do a better job, honestly, of communicating, of not stereotyping, of also leaning in on local government about what is going on with the budget. Where is the money? Where is the money going? And also look to see how even immigrants in your community are grounding some communities. Here's what we see. We always see the conversation of immigrants as what we just heard, Haitians eating cats.
Thank you for bringing that up. J.D. Vance and his craziness.
It's crazy. And you know what? It is steeped in white supremacy, even when it comes to that. First of all, Trump's wife isn't even from here. Like,
right.
We can really talk about immigrants in this country. This is a country of immigrants. And I'm not saying we absolutely need comprehensive immigration rules, but what you are not going to do on our watch is make it like Black folks are cannibals. Make it seem like that Black folks have no dignity, and treat them and talk about them like they are trash. Here's what they never deal with. Why don't you deal with the companies that are hiring people illegally? Why don't you start with that conversation? When we talk about people coming into this country, I believe there should be a lawful process, but you always want to deal with that. And let's also expand to talk about some of these countries that people are fleeing is because of America's footprint in that country. We got to take ownership.
We have to. We have to do something. And as Black folks, I truly believe we got to stop falling into these stereotypes and these conspiracy theories, and we have to research for ourselves. I just think that for so long we've been spoiled. What King and other civil rights activists have done. Do you know, Ebony, how I have to beg a lot of our people to register to vote? And I'm like, do you realize people died, that voting is a privilege, and you won't even go and vote because you already seen the first Black president? And so it's things like that. And then when we get somebody in office that's not, to our satisfaction, and is doing things a whole different type of way, we're going to complain.
Right.
But it's like, you got the vote. This is your time right now. That's why we push it. And so it's people like you and the other reporters and, the activists and the volunteers that I have to salute, because you're giving out the information. At the end of the day, Ebony, we as a melanated people can't say that we didn't know. You got all this information.
Right.
If you can scroll up and down and get on those blogs, scroll sometime and look at the news and see what's going on in your community.
Ooh, you hit it on the head. Look, scroll to whitehouse.gov and then go scroll to some credible Black journalists, because you're right. Immigrants ain't the reason why you ain't got no job.
Okay.
They got flood your communities like that. That ain't why you got no job. First of all, you need to deal with racism that has been hindering you from going and moving up the ladder, and we're still dealing with it, even with Vice President Kamala Harris, who they are questioning her Blackness. If they questioning her, you got to know they questioning you. You got to understand what the effects of the Supreme Court striking down affirmative action that's also affecting our HBCUs. Why don't you start there with the money that is being taken out of your communities before you go talk about that? And when we talk about Black jobs, how we keep hearing Trump always traffic in that black jobs is. How come you don't reference that and say black jobs in CEO positions? Why don't you see black folks running Fortune 500 companies? Why is it that the jobs that you always refer to are jobs that you feel like only illegals can get? Why is that? Your problem ain't the immigrant. Your problem is the problem that's been here and existed that we've been fighting for. And you said our folks died. Lonnie, they still dying. They dying in emergency rooms because they can't get the help that they need, because people are voting for people that are voting against their interests. They're dying because they're living in food deserts because we don't have legislative leaders who want to actually replenish and help our communities, but want to see how much they can take from it. We're dying and we don't know it.
Thank you, Ebony. We'll have you back on before the election, okay? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Here's your dose of espresso. Strong, hot news now.
This is the Espresso. Another one of Diddy's alleged victims has come forward.
The internal pain after being sexually assaulted has been incredibly deep and hard to put into words.
And despite all the crazy stuff we've heard on the news and Trump trying to scare us about the crime rates, here are the facts.
The FBI reported that violent crime dropped nationally. Overall, violent crime was down roughly 3%, with reports of murders falling more than 11% year over year, the largest single-year decline in 2 decades. Property crime also down, although reports of car thefts went up.
And congrats to Asia Wilson of the WNBA. She is the most valuable player of the year.
I hope the fans know that I see every message, every TikTok they make. I love you all. The fact that anything I do gives another person and another black girl the small bit of hope, that's what keeps me going.
That's the Espresso.
This is Cafe Mocha. Radio from a woman's perspective.
Cafe Mocha with Lonnie Love, Yo-Yo, and Angelique. Lonnie, what's up in them streets?
Oh, there's a lot happening, Angelique. As you know, this is an election year. And currently, there is this presidential transition project known as Project 2025 that is being organized by the Heritage Foundation, which is a very conservative right-wing group of people. And it's a policy that it's a 1,000-page document. It is online. You can read all about it. But basically, it's a number of conservative organizations got together to prepare a roadmap for the next Republican president. Donald Trump has been known to say he didn't know about Project 2025. He doesn't know about it. But most of the people that some of the people that are working with him, that have been working with him, are on this organization. So
it takes away all our rights.
It basically what Project 2025 is it wants to take away a lot of things and give the states rights. So they're recommending that the state opt out of any federal education programs. They're also saying that the funding should be directed in other things. Of course, they don't
education.
Yes, they want
education funding.
They say that individuals with disabilities, education acts, like all of that stuff should be taken away. They want to shut down certain departments. They don't believe in LGBTQ rights at all. All the DEI, all of the minority funding, they want to do away with it. It really is a dangerous perspective, and will start, like, whoever the Republican president is, the way they set it up, it will start day one. Federal employees, they want to get rid of anyone who does not get on the plan. So they would be willing to get rid of 50,000 federal employees and put in employees who understand, who are conservative, that understand the goals of Project 2025. Is very, very scary. And it's something that that they want to try to do. So you can read all about it if you just Google Project 2025. Like I said, there's over like 1,000 pages of it, and it's ridiculous.
Want a little more of our flavor? Stay right there. It's Cafe Mocha.
Early voting has already begun in some states. Go to vote.org to get all the information you need, including any changes to voting rules that may have popped up since 2020.
Project 2025. This is the plan for Trump's second term. Of course, LGBTQ rights. They're going to make a federal government establish marriage between a man and a woman as the ideal natural family structure. They're going to withdraw all the federal anti-discrimination protections. For education, they're going to reverse Biden's administration's student debt relief efforts.
Oh, so our student loans, all that stuff is out?
All that they want to reverse. This is if Trump gets to the second term or if a Republican gets into office. They're going to put, for healthcare, they're going to put Medicaid on the path to privatization. They're going to repeal President Biden's Medicaid drug pricing. They're threatening.
Oh, the free diabetes, the low cost diabetes stuff.
All of that they're rolling back. For the federal government, they're going to gut the federal workforce and install loyalists by making tens of thousands of civil servants fireable at Trump's will. They're going to allow Trump to deploy the military against American citizens. Ooh. They're going to further lower taxes on big corporations. They're going to cease support for international organizations that promote LGBTQ plus equality. This is just an example of some of the things that this Project 2025 actually it has in this 1,000-page document, which is why it's very scary. Again, I said that Trump is claiming he doesn't know anything about it. But a lot of the people that are in that organization that have been on this committee are currently working with Trump. So, you can take it for what it's worth. This is the reason why we are pushing so hard for people to vote. I'm working with a fabulous organization. I've been working for years. When We All Vote, it is a nonpartisan voting organization where we just want to make sure that every American has the right to vote. And we're asking you to make sure to check your voter registrations because the deadlines are coming up immediately. So if you go to whenweallvote.org, whenweallvote.org, you can register to vote there. It's simple, it is easy, and it's something you can check your voter registration. You can check where your polling is. You can check if you have mail-in ballots. Do that today because this election is going to be so important and your vote counts. And for people that, if you're confused about certain things, vote. If you think your vote doesn't matter, why are they trying to suppress voting? Why are they trying to, if the vote didn't matter, it does matter. Your vote matters. This is your voice. This is democracy. Democracy, all the stuff that you see happening is what happens when you have a democratic society. If we were, had a king or a dictator, this stuff wouldn't be happening. So yes, it may appear scary. It may, appear aggressive, but this is what happens in democracy. And so your participation in voting helps us to make sure that all of us have equality and equity, and we all deserve it. So please go to whenweallvote.org today. Check your voter registration, register to vote. Make sure your people, your family, and your friends are voting as well. So, if you don't do anything, at least do that. Do your part in helping the community. It's Cafe Mocha.
As we close in on Election Day, let's do all we can to make sure those around us are registered. Make sure that little old lady next door knows how to fill out her ballot. Take her to the polls if you need to. It's ugly out there. Lots of lies and misinformation on both sides. So make sure your friends and family aren't getting their news from social media or Janet Jackson. Most importantly, let's vote like our rights depend on it, because they do. Until next time, you can find us on all platforms at Cafe Mocha Radio. Cafe Mocha is a production of Miles Ahead Broadcasting in partnership with Super Radio. Executive producer Sheila Eldridge. For comments, booking, or more information, visit cafemocharadio.com.